When I was 18, my brothers sent me into a storm for beer, then drove off and left me stranded. I walked for miles barefoot in the rain, bleeding and alone. I never spoke to them again until 9 years later, when I invited them back to that same lake house, with a screen playing everything they'd forgotten. When I was 18, I was the youngest of 3 boys. Tom was 24, already married, smug as hell with his MBA and fancy watch. Darren was 21, built like a linebacker and permanently glued to a vape pen. I was just the little brother. Quiet, awkward, always the butt of every joke. If I said something, it got mocked. If I stayed quiet, I was weird. So when they invited me to a manhood weekend at our parents' old lake house, I said yes. Desperately. The lake house had been abandoned for a while, Mom's grief house after Dad passed, now left to rot like everything else she couldn't look at. It was moldy, creaky, smelled like mildew and regret. But for me, it meant everything. Tom called it a brother's only rite of passage. Whiskey, fire pit, no girls, no phones. Just bonding. I showed up with a six-pack, my best flannel, and this naive hope in my chest that maybe, for once, they wanted me there. The night started fine. We lit a fire. Played poker with pennies. They told stories about girls, college fights, office scandals. I didn't say much, just listened, smiled too much, laughed when they did. Around midnight, Darren leaned over and said, "All right, squirt. Time for the final test." "What test?" I asked, immediately nervous. "The storm's coming in hard. You drive to the 24/7 gas mart, get us a case of Miller High Life, and come back without dying." Boom, manhood unlocked. I blinked. Thunder was already rumbling across the lake. It was a 30-minute drive, one way. "I don't have a car," I said. Tom jingled his keys. "You're taking mine. You break it, you buy it." I should have known. Should have seen something in the way Darren smirked at Tom, or how Tom paused just a second too long before tossing me the keys. But I was 18. Desperate. Stupid. I took the keys. Slipped on my soaked Converse. Drove off into the pouring rain, windshield wipers screaming against the glass. The gas station was sketchy. The kind with flickering lights and a clerk who didn't look up once. I grabbed the beer, paid in crumpled bills, and headed back, heartbeat steady now, almost proud. That was until I pulled up to the lake house. And saw the lights were off. The fire pit was cold. Tom's car gone. So was Darren's. At first, I thought maybe they moved the cars. Or were messing with me. But when I stepped onto the porch, I saw it. A single sheet of notebook paper pinned under a rock. In thick black Sharpie, written in Tom's handwriting. "Real men figure it out. Happy birthday, loser." No smiley face. No winky emoji. Just cold ink on damp paper. The storm roared louder than it had all night. And that's when I knew it wasn't a joke. They'd left me. And I had no way home. I stood there for a long time, soaked from the rain, beer case in one hand, that pathetic note in the other. The porch light flickered behind me like the world was clapping for the punchline. It wasn't just the cold that crept in, it was the realization. The sharp, heavy truth. They did this on purpose. Not some spur-of-the-moment prank. Not something they'd laugh about over breakfast and apologize for. This was deliberate. Calculated. They drove off knowing I was an hour away from any kind of help, in the middle of a storm, with nothing but their father's rusty old house behind me and black woods ahead. At first, I screamed. I shouted their names into the trees like some stupid horror movie cliché. Maybe I hoped they were hiding nearby, waiting to jump out with cameras and laughter. But there was nothing. Just rain slapping leaves and thunder rolling over the lake like it was mocking me. Tom's car key was still in my pocket. I sprinted around the side of the house, mud sucking at my shoes, and found the car wasn't gone. It was stuck halfway in the backyard, wedged between 2 trees. No tires. Doors open. Interior gutted. They'd staged it. Made me think I was driving his Real car, when it was a junker already wrecked and rotting. That's when panic turned into something worse, clarity. They hadn't left me an escape. There wasn't supposed to be one. My phone had no signal. My wallet was gone, left on the table inside before I left. I checked every window. Locked. Front door? Deadbolt from the inside. They'd sealed the house up before I got back. I was 18. Alone. In a storm. And my brothers thought this was funny. After an hour of trying to bust the door open with a tree branch, I gave up. My hands were bleeding. My throat raw from shouting. I dragged myself back to the porch, sat down on the steps, and just existed for a while. Staring at the woods like they'd start talking back. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry yet. Just hollow. Like someone had scooped me out. When the storm finally softened to a drizzle around 4 a.m., I stood and made a choice. I walked 6 miles of gravel and broken pavement. I took off my shoes after mile 2. My heels were blistered and skin peeled off in ribbons. I passed one car the entire way, it didn't stop. Eventually, I made it to a gas station on the edge of town. Collapsed on the coal tile by the vending machines. The clerk just stared while I asked for the bathroom. He handed me a towel wordlessly. I called my friend Tyler from the station phone. He drove 40 minutes to get me. Didn't ask questions. Just helped me into his truck and said, "You want to crash at mine?" I stayed with Tyler for a week. Ignored every call from my mom. She didn't know yet. But Tom and Darren did. I saw their texts on my lock screen when I finally turned my phone back on. "Bro, chill, it was a joke. Don't be dramatic. We were just messing with you. Be a man, it's not that deep." I blocked them both. Didn't go home. Didn't go back to school. Didn't speak to my mother until 6 months later when she called to say she was selling the lake house. I told her to go ahead. But I made a note of the address. And I never deleted it. Because somewhere between that road and the rain, a part of me decided. One day, they'll remember this night. Because I'll be the one who brings it back. I didn't vanish. Not right away. But I might as well have. After the lake house incident, I cut ties with my family the way you cut a dead limb, slow, precise, and without ceremony. I ghosted holidays. Missed birthdays. When my mom called, I let it ring out. I never explained myself. Because deep down, they didn't want an explanation. They wanted me to forget. But I didn't. I moved 3 towns over. Got a job at a hardware store, then another hauling freight at a warehouse on the edge of the city. I lived in a basement apartment with one tiny window and a mattress on the floor. Ate ramen, showered at the gym, and made minimum wage feel like freedom. In silence, I rebuilt myself. I didn't go to college. Couldn't afford it. So I taught myself. Nights were for reading business, contracts, construction, logistics. I watched lectures on YouTube like sermons. If I didn't understand something, I learned it twice. I didn't care about degrees. I wanted tools. I took every job I could. Roofing, flooring, demolition. Learned to rewire a house from a guy named Curtis who smelled like gasoline and gave me a pair of steel-toe boots for my birthday. I never told him why I worked like my soul depended on it. Because I knew one thing, carved into my bones from that stormy night. People only remember you when you become something they can't ignore. By 24, I had my own contracting license. By 25, I had employees, 3 guys who respected me because I worked alongside them. Not above. Not behind. We flipped houses. I lived on site sometimes. Slept in the living rooms of future kitchens. Ate power bars, drank instant coffee, and made every square foot of progress feel personal. That's when I saw it. The lake house. On a foreclosure listing. Not their house. But the one next door. Same style. Same dock. Same cursed shoreline where I stood with muddy feet and bloodied soles. The listing called it a lakefront fixer-upper with major potential. It was gutted. Foundation cracked. Roof sagging like a wilted leaf. It was perfect. I bought it in cash. And then I waited. For 2 years, I rebuilt it myself. Not flashy. Not showy. Just strong. Every nail, every beam, measured and placed by the same hands that once clutched a wet note on a rainy porch. The windows faced the old house, my brother's so-called summer retreat. I installed cameras. I watched. They still visited. Not often. But enough. Sometimes with friends. Sometimes with family. Once, Tom even brought his kid. They laughed around the fire pit like it was some holy relic. I never approached. Never even opened my curtains. Let them think it was a vacation home for some quiet stranger. Until the letters started arriving. Handwritten. No return address. Just a few words each time. Remember the storm? Still figuring it out? Tick-tock, boys. I sent an old beer bottle. Cracked. Molded. Wrapped in a ribbon. Then a voicemail, time to hit Tom's phone at 3:07 a.m. Thunder. Footsteps. My voice, flat and cold. Real men don't run. The next week, they showed up at my door. Darren rang the bell like his finger was on fire. I answered in silence. White t-shirt. calm eyes. Beer in hand. He blinked at me, stepping back half a pace. Do I know you? I smiled like frostbite. Need something, bro? He didn't speak. Because the truth was already dripping down his spine. He knew. He just didn't know what I was about to do next. They came in waves after that. First Darren. Then Tom. Then, eventually, both of them standing on my newly built porch, pretending not to squint at the house they didn't recognize but almost remembered. Tom wore a Patagonia vest, like he was selling real estate in Aspen. Darren had the same dumb buzzcut from when we were teens, now shadowed by early baldness. They looked tired. Unsteady. Like men who hadn't slept right in days. I opened the door slow. Calm. Same beer in hand. Same t-shirt. They both froze like I was holding a weapon instead of a welcome. Tom cleared his throat. Hey, this your place? I nodded. We used to come here. My family. Next door. He motioned with his thumb toward the lake house. Crazy coincidence, huh? Not really, I said. I've been here a while. Tom studied my face. Something clicked behind his eyes. His mouth twitched, but no words came out. Darren, to his credit, was faster. You're that kid, he blurted. I didn't smile. I didn't blink. I was your brother, I said, evenly. Once. Tom's eyes widened. Wait, no. No way. Nick? I nodded. Still figuring it out? Neither of them laughed. Darren looked away. Tom stepped back. Man, he said. Look, we didn't know it would we didn't think you'd disappear? I said. Get stuck in a storm? Walk 6 miles through the rain while you laughed over poker and called it a rite of passage? Darren tried to laugh. Come on, it was a joke. You ghosted us for years, man. What, now you're mad about it? Mad? They still thought it was about anger. That this was some emotional tantrum after 9 years of silence. But it wasn't rage that kept me up at night. It was strategy. So I stepped aside and said, come in. And like fools, they did. My living room was clean. Sparse. Just one couch, a coffee table, and a mounted TV where the screen lit up before they even sat down. Footage. Old and grainy. The night of the initiation. I'd recovered it from a busted camcorder my mom left behind when she sold the lake house. Had it restored. Transferred. Enhanced. There was Darren on the screen, laughing as I drove off. Tom holding up a beer and saying, let's see if he makes it back in one piece. Their laughter echoed around my living room. Both men stared at the footage like it was a crime scene. Because it was. That's old, Tom muttered. It's clear, I said. Clear enough for anyone to see. I hit pause. Their faces frozen. Mouths open mid-laugh. You know what I learned from that night? I said. That silence is stronger than rage. That if you wait long enough, people forget how guilty they are. Darren stood. All right, man, this is messed up. You're being dramatic again, like always. Let's go, Tom. But Tom didn't move. Because he saw what was coming. On the wall behind them, framed in black, were copies of every letter I'd sent. Every delivery. Every note. This hadn't been a prank to me. It had been war. And I was just getting started. Tom didn't say a word as Darren stormed out. Just sat there on my couch, the TV screen behind him frozen like a ghost with perfect timing. That beer bottle I'd handed him earlier sat untouched on the table, sweating in the heat of the moment. You planned this, he finally said. His voice wasn't angry. It was impressed. Like he was discovering a hidden trapdoor and realizing too late he'd been standing on it the whole time. I nodded once. Took me 9 years. He ran a hand through his hair. Jesus, Nick. All of this, the letters, the beer bottle, the camera footage, what's the point? Revenge? You want to shame us? I leaned back, laced my fingers behind my head. No. Shame wears off. I want you to remember. He looked genuinely puzzled. Remember what? That you made me disappear. And not once did you come looking. I let that hang there. Let him chew on it while the thunder outside began to roll in again, almost on cue. He swallowed hard. I thought you just moved on. Moved on, I repeated, almost laughing. You mean the way people move on from a pet dying? From a breakup? No, Tom. I recalibrated. You killed the version of me who wanted your approval. Now I'm what grew in its place. He leaned forward, his face tight. So what do you want from me? That was the question, wasn't it? I stood, walked over to a cabinet, and pulled out a black folder. Tossed it onto the table in front of him. Inside, copies of property records, loan applications, contractor receipts. Legal documents. All pointing to one thing. I bought your mortgage, I said. He blinked. What? 3 years ago. From the bank. Quiet transaction. They didn't care who I was as long as I had the cash. Technically, I own the deed. The house next door? It's mine. Yours is on borrowed time. He opened the folder with trembling fingers, scanning the documents. This isn't possible. It's already done, I said. He looked up, his face pale. You're going to evict us? No, I said calmly. I'm going to let you choose. I slid another envelope across the table. Inside was an invitation. Thick, textured cardstock with gold trim. You're invited, the Lakefront Brotherhood reunion. Underneath, a date, 3 weeks from now. You're going to bring Darren. Bring anyone you want. Family, friends, co-workers. I'll provide the drinks. The food. Even a fire pit. He stared at it like it was poison. And then, he asked. Then I show them, I said, tapping the paused frame on the TV behind him. Everything. You want to keep your little empire? Keep your image? Come clean. Or don't show up, and I do it anyway. Tom stood, hands balled into fists, shaking. But he didn't raise them. He didn't yell. He just whispered, "You're sick." I tilted my head. No. I'm awake. He left the same way Darren had, silent, shaking, defeated. I watched him through the window as he walked back to the house next door. He didn't look back once. And I didn't need him to. Because now the invitation was out. The clock had started ticking. And this time, I held the matches. 3 weeks. That's how long I gave them. 21 days to stew in silence. To argue in private. To pace back and forth through the rotting lake house trying to come up with a plan. I watched it all from my window like a director watching his actors forget their lines. Darren never came back. Not once. Tom, though? He watched me. Through his curtains. From his dock. From the shadows of his own porch at night. I knew he was unraveling. I made sure of it. 3 days before the reunion, I sent out the final round of invites, this time, digitally. Invites to old high school friends. Former co-workers. His wife's extended family. I used an anonymous sender name, but I knew Tom would get word fast. Subject line. You're cordially invited, a night of brotherhood, memory, and truth. The location? Private lakefront home, dress casual, expect fire. Tom tried to call me. I let it ring. Then I sent him a single text. One match lights the lake. The night came cold and bright. Clear sky. Still water. The air smelled like pine and gasoline. I had the place staged like a magazine cover. White string lights over the dock. Food trays. Bar stocked. A speaker system that played soft jazz with a sinister hum underneath. And right in the center of the gathering space, projector screen already raised, just waiting. At 7:02 p.m., the first guests arrived. Laughing. Confused. Curious. They didn't know why they were here, just that someone had organized a surprise reunion at the old family lake property. Darren didn't show. But Tom did. Not with his wife. Alone. He looked like a man walking into a courtroom. I greeted him with a drink. Glad you came, I said. I didn't come for your circus, he replied. Then you're gonna hate Act 2, I said, leading him to a chair. At 8:14 p.m., I raised a glass and tapped the mic. Thank you all for coming, I said. Some of you may not know why you're here. Some of you might already suspect. Tonight isn't about celebration, it's about memory. About brotherhood. A few polite chuckles. Tom didn't move. I nodded to the guy manning the projector. He hit play. The video started exactly where I wanted it to me, 18, carrying the beer, soaking wet, face lit by lightning. It rolled into the porch shot. The note. My voiceover explaining the initiation. And then them. Laughing. Their voices crystal clear. Let's see how long it takes the little bastard to get back. Hope he freezes his balls off. Real men figure it out. The crowd went quiet. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Is that Tom?" He stood. "This is out of context," he muttered. I paused the video. "No," I said into the mic, "this is exactly what it looks like." And I turned to him. "You left me alone. 18. In a storm. On my birthday. And then you laughed." He looked around. Eyes wild. Mouth dry. I didn't think you'd actually walk," he said. "It was just a joke?" I finished for him. "No. It was a message. You were saying I didn't belong. That I was disposable. So I spent 9 years becoming someone you couldn't throw away." He tried to speak. No one listened. His wife's cousin stood. "You left your brother in a storm?" Another voice, "Jesus, Tom." It spread like wildfire. I stepped back. Let the video finish. Then I shut it off. And the silence afterward? Delicious. Tom left before dessert. Alone. Again. And this time, I didn't follow. Because the final part? That was still to come. 3 days after the reunion, I woke up to find 27 new messages on my phone. Not from Tom or Darren, they were done pretending. These were from their friends, their spouses, their co-workers. Some confused. Some furious. A few thanking me. It turns out when you expose someone's soul on a 120-inch screen, it doesn't stay a private event. The video spread fast. I hadn't even uploaded it. Someone else did. One of their own. By the end of the week, Tom's carefully curated suburban life had fractured. His wife, Megan, moved out. Took the kid and the dog. According to public records, yes, I checked, she filed for divorce 3 days after the party. Darren? I heard through a mutual friend he'd quit his job after some video got shared in his company Slack channel. Apparently, it made its way to HR. The best part? I didn't lift a finger. They did this to themselves. But my revenge wasn't complete. Not yet. Because I didn't just want humiliation. I wanted ownership. So I filed the paperwork. 3 weeks later, Tom got the letter, notice to vacate. He had 60 days. That lake house, the one they laughed in, drank in, locked me out of, it would be mine, officially. Legally. Irrevocably. But I wasn't going to live in it. No. I donated it. To a local organization that rehabilitates teens from abusive homes. They're turning it into a seasonal retreat. Fresh paint, new insulation, rows of bunk beds, and one big fireplace for late-night stories, real ones. Healing ones. They asked if I wanted a plaque. I said yes. Dedicated to those left behind. From one who found his way back. The night before the demolition of the old dock rotten, splintered, the same one I had bled on, I stood there one last time. Beer in hand. Sky overcast, just like before. That note? The one they left me? I still had it. I laminated it. Framed it. Hung it in the foyer of the new retreat house. Not as a warning. As a reminder. Because some kids will read that and know they're not alone. That someone else survived abandonment. Humiliation. Betrayal. And didn't just live. Thrived. Tom sent me one final message. A real letter, this time. Scribbled handwriting. No return address. I get it now. I really do. You win. I didn't reply. I burned it. Because this was never about winning. It was about becoming untouchable. About making sure no one could ever lock me out again. Now, when I walk by that lake, the air smells cleaner. The porch light stays on. And the house next door? Empty. Silent. Exactly how it should be.